Welcome to the Cultivating Business Growth Podcast, bringing you bi-weekly discussions designed to help you grow your business and create the lifestyle you desire. Elevate your business with proven strategies from virtual CFOs, CPAs, and business advisors. We discuss real-world challenges solved with actionable steps that get you the results you need, both in business and building the life you deserve.
Welcome to episode number 170 of the Cultivating Business Growth Podcast, brought to you by Willow Virtual CFO. Today, we are excited to discuss how business systems and processes drive real growth with Holly Jean Jackson. Holly Jean Jackson is a business coach, speaker, and systems strategist who helps entrepreneurs build thriving businesses without burning out. With a background in technology and leadership development, Holly specializes in creating streamlined business systems and processes that support sustainable growth. She's passionate about helping business owners delegate with confidence, reclaim their time, and scale their impact. Welcome to you, Holly.
Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate it. I'm excited to chat about getting your life back.
Yeah, I'm also excited. I feel like this is a topic that you hear a lot about, a lot of burnout, I just don't know what I'm doing anymore. And I think it has a lot to do with not putting processes and systems in place for the things that we can, so that we can focus our energy on what's very valuable and important. So why don't we get started with the big picture? Can you break down what business systems and processes actually are and why they're so essential for small business growth?
Yeah, so a lot of people mistake systems for just the technology, where system is really having a specific framework and a strategy for getting things done efficiently and effectively. And then underneath that system, you have specific processes, which essentially a process breaks down step by step how somebody would complete a task. That's actually why we have what is systematically known as standard operating procedures, so that those processes can be documented. So there's some standardization so that, let's say something happens to Jamie tomorrow, somebody else on the team can pick up the work that she is the person who's mainly in charge of, that kind of work. It helps them also understand the technology touch points that are utilized, the handoffs that are involved when it's client facing, and if there's any timeline that's impacted across the board. That's the most simple way I can explain systems and processes.
No, I think that's great. I do think people think, oh, I have a system. It's, Asana, it's Trello, that's my system that I'm using. But I think, to your point, it's more of a process. What are the steps? How does everybody get integrated from your team to leverage it? And you can do some of that with those systems, but the how, right? How do you do that? How is it helping you collaborate together?
Yeah, and on that point, when it comes to your technologies, of course, you have your core technology stack that you use within each company. But in terms of systemizing a process, there are oftentimes touch points across multiple technologies, not systems, because people kind of irreplaceably use those words, which could be really confusing for our conversation today.
Yes.
But the system and the standard operating procedure help you outline the technologies that are involved in each touch point, and if there are automations across those touch points, or if there's human intervention across those touch points.
Yeah, I like that differentiating between technology and systems, and in processes. I think that's really helpful, and I will do my best to be clear when I'm speaking. But why do so many small businesses just overlook systems until those business owners hit a breaking point?
Well, if you think about it, most people who start a company or a business have a specialty that they are great at doing. So for you guys, it's in the financial sector. For a lot of my clients, they're marketing experts. Some of them are sales experts. Some of them are coaches. And they're really good at doing that thing. But nobody taught us, even if you have an MBA, nobody taught us, gosh, we should have standard operating procedures. Goodness, you should understand technology touch points. You should understand all these pieces. So when you're trying to successfully grow a business, you're so focused on revenue, onboarding, client delivery. If you have a team, making sure your employees are happy, that's a lot of balls to already juggle. And also, a lot of business owners and visionaries are really afraid of handing things over to somebody else. And they don't even understand how they would start doing that because they haven't documented it. They don't know what they can systemize or hand off. And so, of course, they get to a breaking point where they're forced to figure it out. And they end up hiring somebody like me to help them figure that out because it's just not the way that their brain works. And in fact, there are books on this. You've got visionaries, and then you've got people who are the doers that actually create and operationalize things. So most of your business owners and visionaries just simply don't have that part of their brain that can do that simply. And nobody taught us. So it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's so many hats that the business owner wears that while theoretically we know it's important, it falls down to the bottom of that list of the things that we need to do. But on the other hand, it's the thing that may save us from, from making it so stressful and being so crazy with, how we're feeling and maybe feeling overwhelmed and,
Well, and think about this too. I wouldn't say that, oh my goodness, standard operating procedures, processes, procedures, they're not sexy. It's not like, oh, let me sit down and do that.
Right.
No, they're going to chase the next shiny object.
Right.
They're going to create the next course, the next program, the next product. They're going to sell the next thing. What they don't understand is that systems and processes and SOPs are really sexy because once you figure out what's successful in your business, you can automate and systemize that thing to make it more successful as a baseline before you chase the next shiny object that you can create revenue behind.
Yeah. And I think it's important to try to lay those foundations early, right? The process and, system is simpler at the beginning, and then you can kind of build upon it over time. So it feels a little less overwhelming potentially, but you got to get to it, right? That's the biggest challenge.
Yeah, for sure.
So laying the foundation, are there any non-negotiable processes every business should be documenting very early on?
Yes. So some of the core things that I think a lot of folks forget about and where I see business owners struggle the most would be their sales process. And part of that sales process is also onboarding the client. And in particular, in the market today, more than ever, where people are competing, whether it's service or product, but particularly for service based owners, is the experience that you're offering. So we want to, in that onboarding experience, that sales process from lead to client, create so many delight moments in that experience that are outlined and clear. So we have a consistent experience that your employees could deliver to all future clients so that we can maintain and sustain clients for more longevity. There's nothing worse than investing a lot in your lead generation and then you flop down on customer experience because your sales process and onboarding experience is not creating delight moments. So that's number one. And this is where a lot of folks hire my company to come in and help them with that. And also because most business owners want to actually eventually scale their sales process and not be the person who's always involved in just selling. And this is why we have to systemize the sales process with templates and steps and checkpoints along the way. So that's number one. Number two would be anything that's really essential for your day to day that's a huge time sink. So the things that you really despise doing that are not really something at your price point of what you're charging your clients. Most business owners, their dollar value is significantly higher hourly than for perhaps their assistant or somebody that's a project manager on their team. So anything that you can offload that you don't enjoy doing that's repeatable and is super easy to hand off, whether it's administrative work, scheduling, could be calendar, it could be email management, any of these things we want to quickly systemize and hand off to somebody else, which leads me into the third thing that you should essentially, as a foundation, make sure you have a system for. And this is your employee experience. You want to make sure you have a really great onboarding experience. There's nothing worse or more stressful than finding that perfect person you want to hire and not having a really great experience and then losing them right away. And this happens all the time when we're working with clients. They'll hire us, we'll create, the job description, the KPIs, the impact filters, the SOPs, even help interview. And if we are not involved in the onboarding process, a lot of times where it fails is that part. And then the person doesn't have the essential things in step 2 we talked about. So the employee's not set up for success. They have no direction. They're not excited. Of course, they're going to leave the company. So those are 3 of the things that I would say you want to start with foundationally.
Awesome. I was taking notes because I was like, hey, let me make notes of these things too. And I would, one of the things, we do not do all 3 of those. We have some processes in place for all of them, but we have spent a lot of time from our team investing in and onboarding the new client process. And I will say that it is worth the investment in time and or money that you're going to make, because we're seeing a lot of really great feedback from that. And if you can have kind of that honeymoon period, right, where you're really impressing your new client, they're really like, wow, we're having regular communications, we're getting updates, we're making progress from the beginning, then they start to feel like, yeah, this was the right decision. And you just have a lot of really meaningful conversations. That's really, if you know what their goals are, you're talking all about that, and they're getting some immediate value. And so if you do not have a good client onboarding process, like that has been very huge for us in getting our clients up and running and putting them in place for success, as well as ourselves, right? Putting ourselves in place. So I think that is really very helpful for your businesses, like you said. So your 3 were sales process, and onboarding new clients, day-to-day kind of low hanging fruit kind of things that are taking up your time, but you don't have to be doing, and then the employee experience.
Yeah. And the second part is really so that as you hire and scale your employee base, they have something to do, right? We want to
Yep.
have a clear roadmap for the SOPs, the simple things, the tasks. And as you outline step 2, you'll also start to see the gaps of where you need to hire more people. And or perhaps we already have some employees and you see, Vanessa is overwhelmed on X, Y, and Z. That's not her superpower as a leader in your company. But then Roy over here, he's actually really good at that. Can he actually take that on? Or do we actually need to hire somebody who's an operational specialist or a marketing specialist because there's a gap with who you have there?
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. Speaking of delegation, how do well-documented systems make delegation smoother and more impactful?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. We see clients come to us all the time where really where they're at is they're really backed into a corner of busyness and not running their business with, longevity and smoothness. And that's because they have waited so long and they've grown so quickly that they don't have the processes in place and they really need to hire another person or their first person. When you're in this position, it's a double whammy. And so when you lack the systems, the processes, it makes hiring and having a smooth onboarding experience virtually impossible. You're going to look like a crazy person. It's going to look like you don't have it together. We see this all the time. And I remember initially years ago when I hired an intern, this is very early in, I'm 7 years in at this point, and I didn't have a clear process. Of course, that wasn't as successful as it could have been. Now that I have much more articulation in all of the things that we need. And for the next role we're going to do, we have job descriptions, KPIs, impact filters, all the standard operating procedures, and even training videos for onboarding that person. We also know to pace the onboarding where we don't overwhelm them with too much so that they feel set up for success. And then, of course, we hire based on the person in their mission alignment, vision alignment, values alignment. But when you have the systems in place, it makes hiring and firing easy. It makes culture fit super simple. It makes choosing the right clients very simple and creating that amazing onboarding experience where you actually stand out from the competitors amazing. And it makes where you have turnover or emergencies within your employee base smooth because anybody can pick up the baton and run with it, right?
Yep.
So those are several examples of why you need systems, and they're really sexy, and why you should really dive into processes.
Yes. And on the note of delegation, delegation is really important. But what do you say to those business owners who believe, and I've run into these people, and I'm sure you have too, well, I'm going to do it the best. Like, I will be the one, I really have to do this process or so. And so I couldn't possibly delegate this. And I'm not going to lie, that has been me in the past, where I'm like, oh, this is too complicated. I'd rather just do it myself because it's too hard to explain. But what do you tell business owners when they come to you and are like, oh, I can delegate certain things, but I'm going to keep some of these things?
Let me share a story on why that belief is wrong. And I was that person too. I hired my first person as just an assistant, right? And this person I really thought was just going to help with administrative things, scheduling things, some operational things, some client experience things. This person actually turned out to be a marketing genius. She is now my marketing and relationship manager. I never in a million years thought I'd be able to say, hey, Jamie, guess what? Holly does like 0% of her marketing. And that's true after this year. I did the outline for all of our content for 2025, but for 2026, this person's going to do it. And half the time, 90% of the time, when this individual actually drafts my emails, my social media posts, she sounds better than me. Like her voice, and it's so on point. She understands me. She's like a mini me. And so I never thought I would not have to do that. And she is brilliant. And that's why now we're focused on shoring up more on the operational side and the project management side because of that. Now, so what I want to challenge those that don't believe this is possible, what would it feel like if you found that needle in the haystack? And guess what? It is out there. If you hire based on values and mission alignment, and you invest in the person you hire, and you stay open to what they are a genius at, you'd be amazed at what you can actually stop doing and hand off, and they're going to be better at it than you are. So I would ask yourself, what would it be like for somebody to take this over for me? And how amazing would it feel if they were better at it than you were?
Yes. And I will second that story with a similar experience as well, where I had a really large client that I'd been working with for a very long time. And I was convinced, and part of it has to do with those people, Holly, that you find that maybe aren't the right people to hand off certain things to. I definitely think it's important that you find the right person with the right skill set. Not everybody takes ownership of everything the same way we do, probably as business owners, and just probably a lot of our natural tendencies. But when I brought somebody in to help, to your point, with some, can you just do some of this accounting to help me out? After probably 3 to 6 months, I was like, you just handle all of it because you have better attention to detail, to your point. Like, you are probably doing this better than I was because you are meticulous. You are, dedicated to this client. And to your point, she had a lot of that skill set and those core values that I was like, yeah, you have more time, right? I'm the business owner too. I can't dedicate all of my time to this. As a part of our team, that's your complete role. So she had more capacity, more time to be able to do it, and all the same skill sets. And in the end, to your point, she's doing it better than I am, right? And I'm like, and then you have to be able to reconcile that with yourself. You're like, no, wait a minute. But I feel like it's one of those things where you want to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, who are doing other things, right? Like, that's a good thing. Like, it's great that my client is very happy and I have a teammate who can handle the work we're throwing at her. And then I can come in and just be high level advisor. So you got to challenge yourself. It is hard, but if you can find that right person, it can make all the difference in the world.
The other thing I want to add on, when you said that they might not be the same way or show up the same way as the business owner, you can actually create your employee experience in such a way where they show up more with the entrepreneurship mindset. There are strategies for that. And part of that is really incentivizing them based on revenue gains and revenue growth in the business. That way, when you show them how their specific KPIs, their key performance indicators and goals that they have set, and you obviously have to be intentional about setting these, when they hit those and there's revenue growth and they can see that, they show up differently. They're not just
Yeah.
a 9 to 5 employee. They are thinking as an entrepreneur from a startup mindset and perspective, because they care more about the bonus than just their base pay. They want to
Right.
be successful, and they can actually see based on revenue growth how much they're impacting the company's growth, because they care that much about the vision and mission.
Yes, I love that. That's amazing. So let's talk about some red flags. So what are some clear signs that a business is in need of a stronger systems or process upgrades?
Yeah. So when people are struggling with their sales process, right? So they're getting overwhelmed, they have too many sales calls, but they're starting to see their sales conversion dwindle. Or the owner of the company is the only person that manages the entire sales process. So you'll start to see revenue dropping, conversions dropping, the business owner is overwhelmed, and they want to scale it past that. Also, when you see business owners and you ask them how long they retain customers and how many referrals they get from customers, when the longevity is low and they're not getting a lot of referrals, there's a huge, huge problem in their customer experience. There's a massive disconnect there. If you have a business owner who is not retaining employees or struggling with their process for finding and onboarding employees, there's a clear employee experience and lack of system and process there. And then oftentimes a lack of partnership with the right folks to help them in terms of finding those people. That's not something you have to have, specialty in as a business owner, but having recruiting partnerships and firms that help you with that alongside your system is essential. So those are a few. I could keep going, but that's probably enough to start.
Yeah, no, that's helpful to note. How can you tell if your team is being held back from a lack of structure?
Yeah, so if you have a top performing team member who you do your quarterly evaluations and they constantly are excelling, and then you start to see that dwindle, that's typically because they're lacking capacity, they're lacking direction, or there's a systemization problem, or we need to hire more people on the team. So you kind of have to ask the right questions to figure out where that is.
Hmm.
Also, when your employees don't have a systemized process and they're having to do something that's repeatable from scratch, that's a massive time waster. So if you don't have templates for something that's a standardly, typically asked question, then that's crazy. Why are we not systemizing that? Or if you can use AI and automation for certain triggers within the system where we don't need human intervention, why are we wasting time and putting that burden on our employees when we can actually use what they are brilliant at doing to shore up other pain points and problems in the business? So when your team is not hitting their metrics, but they're typically a top performer, they are dropping the ball on follow-up items and they're getting behind on tasks and delegation. You ask them for something and usually it's, I'll get that to you tomorrow. And now it's a month from now. These are massive red flags that the team is lacking process and standardization, or you need to hire more people because you've grown too fast.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know we installed like a process of, when we're working with accounting, a lot of the things are very repetitive, right? Every month we're going through a checklist, and we created checklists for our team so that, to your point, if I needed somebody else to jump in, I don't have to re-explain, well, for this client, we do this. And we have a set template that like anybody can grab, and then you can customize it. Hey, this client has a few different things, and then that rolls forward. So I've definitely seen a lot of like our team really loves having that because they can go in and do that. The other upside of that is I can go see how the project is going, right? How are we close to month end? This should be done. I don't have to pick up the phone and call necessarily. I can just go in and look. I can tag within the system and ask some questions. Hey, what's going on with this? It seems delayed. Is there a problem? Can I get an update? So I think there's a lot of value to having those systematized processes so that, to your point, your team is happier. They know what's expected of them. They're not wondering. Um, And then you also have something to go back to say, hey, what is the status? What's going on? So I think that's super valuable on both sides.
100%.
Do you have any tools or platforms you recommend for for organizing, documenting, managing business processes, or does it depend on the business?
Well, so it depends on the business. I'll share what we use, but I am pretty technology agnostic when it comes to working with our clients. I don't believe in, buying more technology than you need. We have a partner that does technology assessments for clients if we have duplication or they're overspending on tech. What we use for our project management and task management for our team is ClickUp. It's a really great tool. We did a lot of customization with one of our business partners based on all the things that we had. That then connects with our CRM, our client relationship management system, which is Pipedrive. And we've done some customization there. We have pipelines for not just clients, but for podcast sponsorships, for speaking opportunities, for our collaboration partners, and other things that will grow over time. So there's automation between those two systems. Those are our two core systems.
Okay.
And then, of course, we use ActiveCampaign for email management. And then there's a million other smaller systems that are core and fundamental, but not as big in terms of pipeline and end-to-end project management.
Okay. And you said you did have to work on customizing them somewhat to kind of fit your business. So, and I think there's systems out there probably for all different business industries. We have some that are very specific to the accounting industry that work really well for us. So it's worth going out there. I recommend doing demos of several of them, getting recommendations from people you might know before choosing something. Because, they cost money, they cost time and effort learning them. It's
That's why I like to
important.
separate system and tech, because when we come in, we want to make sure we are recommending based on what they already have for their technology stack.
Okay.
And if we can't solve their problem based on the current tech stack, we might say, let's research these other few options. And it would replace X, Y, and Z of your tech stack. But the whole goal is, how do we work more efficiently and hit the client needs, which is typically revenue maximization, growth, and a smoother process.
Awesome. I love all of that. That sounds great. So we're coming to the end of our time. If a listener does just one thing after this conversation to move forward toward better systems, what should it be?
The first thing I would say is just make a list of all the things you don't want to do anymore. And the low-hanging fruit within that list would be the things that are easy for you to kind of bullet point and document or do a short recording on, where it'd be easy for you to hand that off. These are simple tasks like scheduling, email management, inbox cleaning up, simple things, so that we can kind of prioritize that list to what is super easy, super repetitive, easy to hand off. And then towards the bottom of the list, it would be like your dream wish list of really core fundamental things that eventually you want to hand off to somebody. Step one, when people are overwhelmed, is what I call break it down Betty. Helps overcome the villain Oliver overwhelm. And so break it down by creating a list, and the dream list could be at the bottom, so that as you start to work on your delegation muscle and you have your systems in place, you'll have more confidence to then go after and tackle those dream lists. And if you're feeling stuck and you need help with this because it's so overwhelming and you're so backed into that corner, we're happy to have a conversation with you, because we do this all the time for business owners who this is not their jam. So
awesome. Well, that leads me into my last point. Where can listeners find you and, more about what you are talking about here?
Yeah, absolutely. So the website is hollyjeanjackson.com. You can email me at holly@hollyjeanjackson.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn. And of course, I'll provide all of our links for the show notes to Jamie and the team. Jamie and Willow, they are one of our core collaboration partners. We love working with them. So I hope this is really valuable to all your listeners, and thank you so much.
Yes. And don't forget, you also have a podcast. Feel free to share on that. I
always forget.
on your podcast. We're collaborating together in both formats.
Yeah. So the website has links to all of that, but the podcast, you can find the book and the podcast are called the same thing. It's called Inspiration Contagion. and it's on all the major platforms. And also the website has links to those as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being a guest here with us today, Holly. We really appreciate you and your time. Keep that momentum going, and we will see you next time.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Thanks.